in the News Roundup. The FIFA U20 World Cup 2013 is here.
And the opening match sees Cuba take on Korea Republic. Join us live on Friday night at 10:45 right here on Pearl.
This Sunday,
you girls are going on castings with real designers for real shows that are happening at Fashion Week.
the models get a real taste of the real fashion world.
It's gonna be big.
But not all of them are ready to walk the walk. Sunday, America's next top model, British Invasion, at 8:30 on Pearl.
滴到我杯雪糕。
滴濕我頭。
哎呀，滴花咗個妝啊！
哎呀，滴污咗我啲衫，咁咪犯法噶喎！
上冷氣機唔滴水，好易啫，好似我哋咁，定期揾師傅睇下，咪得咯。
等我揾管理處，叫樓上快啲揾人整翻佢部機至得。
用迷你倉唔想咁辛苦，即刻打俾我哋啊！無論儲存或提取，一個電話 Yes Storage 上門幫你搞掂晒，既慳時間又慳空間。Yes Storage 包接送嘅迷你倉。
我想生意租住。
我層唐樓想加我
冇入息證明喎，
點算啊？
有香港信貸 ，No trouble，
冇煩惱。
任何物業都借足8成，無需入息證明，5分鐘電話極速批核，樓案簡單冇煩惱，香港信貸樓案 No trouble。
Disney Live presents Mickey's Magic Show. Join Mickey, Minnie, Cinderella, Snow White, and many Disney friends. See spectacular illusions that will dazzle you, amazing acts that will thrill you, and magic that will take your breath away. Come be part of the magic from August 21st to the 25th at Kit Kat Kowloon Bay. Get your tickets now.
Number 1 was killed. Number 2 was murdered. Number 3 was hunted down. And they're coming for him next.
We are the last of our kind. I am number 4.
Sunday, I Am Number 4 on Pearl's Weekend Blockbuster. The time now is 11:42. The time check was brought to you by Chopin.
Security chief says no signs of local systems being hacked. Word that Edward Snowden is seeking asylum in Iceland, and massive anti-government protests in Brazil. Good evening. Secretary for Security Lai Tung-kwok said today that there are no signs computer systems in Hong Kong have been hacked into. The comment came at a special LegCo meeting on ex-CIA employee Edward Snowden's revelations of secret US surveillance programs. Lai said a number of times that the issue is complex and the SAR government cannot comment on the details. Rachel Leung reports.
More demonstrations today at the U.S. Consulate General. This time, the New Territories Association of Societies protested against U.S. surveillance of computer networks here as claimed by whistleblower Edward Snowden. According to Snowden, computer systems of the government, companies, and universities in Hong Kong are all targets of hacking by U.S. intelligence agencies. He claimed that the intelligence agencies have already obtained a lot of information this way. Secretary for Security Lai Tong-kwok stressed this morning in LegCo on the complexity of the Snowden case. He said so far there have been no signs that computer systems in Hong Kong have been hacked into. He added that anyone who feels that his or her life is under threat in Hong Kong can seek help from the police. But the security chief would not be drawn on whether the U.S. government has asked for help from the Secretary for Justice to extradite Edward Snowden. He called for public understanding that the government cannot divulge details on the case. Former Security Secretary Regina Yip expects the government to deal with Edward Snowden in accordance with the law and bilateral agreements with the U.S. She explains that Snowden can be here for some time.
On the other hand, if Mr. Snowden wishes to make an asylum claim, he is also free to do so. And asylum seekers are known to have stayed in Hong Kong enjoying the protection of our courts and the assistance of our human rights lawyers. They are known to have stayed in Hong Kong for easily a decade.
The Edward Snowden case was also the focus during a press conference held by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The gathering was meant for tomorrow's World Refugees Day. The UNHCR was asked what it would do if Snowden turned to them for help. Without commenting specifically on Snowden, a spokeswoman explained that political involvement would complicate any application for refugee status.
One of the criteria for recognition as a refugee is political opinion. So if the claimed activities are related and have a nexus to one of the five convention grounds, then it would affect the outcome of the...
They added that they cannot help anyone who doesn't yet have refugee status, nor can they offer physical protection to any asylum seeker. Rachel Leung, TVB News.
The U.S. National Security Agency, or NSA, defended its use of top-secret spying operations, saying at least 50 terror attacks were prevented as a result. After leaking what officials believe is up to 1 million secret documents, Edward Snowden may still be hiding in Hong Kong, but he's in fact seeking asylum in Iceland.
Amid the backdrop of a rare congressional hearing is where the head of the NSA was subjected to questioning from members of the House Intelligence Committee. While defending the agency's monitoring practices, NSA Director and U.S. Army General Keith Alexander criticized Edward Snowden for exposing programs critical to national security.
I think it was irreversible and significant damage to this nation, and I believe it will hurt us and our allies.
Proving the surveillance program's worthiness, Alexander went on to divulge 2 terror plots cracked by the NSA. One was a plot to blow up the New York Stock Exchange. And using the NSA's telephone database program, helped to connect the dots to a man in California financing a terror group in Somalia.
In recent years, these programs, together with other intelligence, have protected the U.S. and our allies from terrorist threats across the globe, to include helping prevent the potential terrorist events over 50 times since 9/11.
Then the NSA made Snowden out to be a liar, swearing it does not have the ability to indiscriminately eavesdrop.
So the technology does not exist for any individual or group of individuals at the NSA to flip a switch, to listen to Americans' phone calls, or read their emails.
That is correct.
While the NSA encountered no opposition, intelligence officials feel more scrutiny is needed for the future employment of those sworn to keep top secrets. Knowing he's America's most wanted man, Snowden insists it's impossible for him to get a fair trial in the U.S. A middleman has confirmed Snowden is seeking asylum in Iceland, but the Icelandic government refuses to say whether it would grant his request. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
Police revealed tonight that the personal data of 2,500 customers was stolen from local telecommunications company Comnet Telecom. Officers discovered that information including names, email addresses, logins and passwords had been transferred from the telecom company's website to another site overseas. So far, there is no evidence the company's telecommunications system itself was hacked. Comnet is a subsidiary of the listed company Citic Telecom International. Demonstrations in Brazil continued for a sixth straight day as some 50,000 people took to the streets in Sao Paulo Tuesday night. This comes a day after more than 200,000 marched in at least half a dozen cities in what began as a protest over an increase in bus fares. Alan Buckner reports.
The crowd gathered late Tuesday in front of Sao Paulo's Metropolitan Cathedral, then made its way to the Praça de Sé Square in the center of Brazil's biggest city. The protests were organized by university students through a snowballing social media campaign over a 10-cent hike in bus fares, but they've expanded to embrace broader issues such as poor public services, police violence, and corruption. While the demonstrations in Sao Paulo have been mostly peaceful, last night they were marred by a group of rioters who smashed the windows of Sao Paulo City Hall and set fire to a police security post. At least 20 people were arrested for looting. Earlier in the day, Brazil's President Dilma Rousseff tried to defuse the protests by acknowledging the need for better public services and a more responsive government. The unrest comes at a delicate time for Rousseff, whose administration is struggling to rein in high inflation and turn around 2 years of sluggish economic growth. So far, 4 cities have already rolled back the bus fare increases. Sao Paulo's mayor says he's considering it, but has to find a way to make up for the lost revenue. It's not clear if that will be enough to calm the protests, the biggest since a corruption scandal led to the downfall of President Fernando Collor in 1992. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin derailed a push at the G8 summit for a communique calling for the downfall of the Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria. It wasn't the result hoped for by the host, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and US President Barack Obama, who led the push. In the end, the communique called for peace talks between the Syrian government and the rebels to be held as soon as possible. Assad's name wasn't even mentioned. Putin, isolated at the summit, repeatedly clashed with other leaders over the Syrian issue. A new form of resistance now spreading through Turkey has received a nod of approval from the country's deputy prime minister. A lone, silent vigil by a man in Istanbul inspired copycat protests yesterday. Hundreds of protesters stood still and in silence in Istanbul for hours in the streets and squares. It was in stark contrast to the fierce clashes that broke out over the past 3 weeks against Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. This new symbol of anti-government protests has even gone viral, and its founder has earned the nickname the Standing Man. Peace talks between the US and Taliban insurgents in Afghanistan are expected to begin Thursday. To better facilitate the talks, the Taliban opened a liaison office in Doha, Qatar. It will be the first time there have been direct talks between the Taliban and the US. It raises hopes for a negotiated peace after 12 years of bloody and costly war in Afghanistan. Afghan President Hamid Karzai, meanwhile, is distancing himself from the talks. He's reportedly unhappy over the official status being given to the Taliban. A car rammed into the gate at the home of Next Media chairman Jimmy Lai early this morning. No one was hurt. A knife and an axe were left at the scene. Lai says he has no idea why it happened, nor is he worried. Jenny Lam reports.
Part of the gate at Jimmy Lai's home on Kaduri Avenue in Kowloon was damaged. A knife and an axe lay just outside the gate afterwards. Sources at the scene said a car backed into the gate at around 1 a.m. and then sped off. Police have classified the case as criminal damage. About half an hour after the incident, police found a car at Kwai Chung interchange. The door lock and the ignition were damaged. There were also crash marks on the rear of the vehicle. Police suspect the car was involved in what happened at Lai's house. The owner of the vehicle was called to the scene. He told officers that he parked his car in Chin Wan last night and only realized it had been stolen when police contacted him. Jimmy Lai was in the house when the gate was crashed into. This morning, he said he had no idea what happened, nor was he worried. Legislator James Toh is worried that there may be a link between the case and the freedom of speech.
If there is any possibility of this incident linked to Mr. Lai's business, then it will have a very serious implication.
Jimmy Lai's Next Media owns a number of outspoken publications, including the Apple Daily newspaper. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
An outsourced technician working for the MTR Corporation made an add-value device for Octopus cards himself. He then used it to add value totaling some $430,000.